So what I want to ask about is what I call my stuck place, and I recognize it's not always a constant thing, and it has to do with energy, which is always in motion. But I was at the Abraham seminar last week in San Rafael, and it just seemed like I got into journaling and aligning with Vortex and looking Vortex up in the dictionary to get a sense of what it was all about. And just looking at all the things and making lists of all the things that I could do to get closer and closer and closer to my Vortex. So I'd have that delightful flow. You know, the word delight and the word Vortex had a lot of meaning to me and similarity to me. And then as my week wore on, it seemed like I got further and further and further away from the Vortex and got back into that emotional set point of not being where I want to be and making everything about this intensity of efforting and striving and working and getting stuck and getting to the point where...
Well, there are some things we have to jump in here because you said some very key things. You said, I feel stuck. And then you said, because you could feel the incorrectness of that exact terminology, right. You said, I know that energy is always in motion and so forth. Right. And we want to say that feeling of being stuck is the vortex pulling you and you pulling back. In other words, that feeling of stuck is a tug of war. And the thing that we really want you to hear is there would be no tugging if life hadn't caused you to put things in your vortex that are calling you. Right. In other words, if you had not put things in your vortex, then there would be nothing for you to pull back against. In other words, resistance only exists because something is causing you or calling you or pulling you from where you are. Hear this distinction because it's a really good one. I could not feel stuck if I hadn't expanded and was not dragging my feet on going with the expansion. That's the best way of looking at stuck that you can ever find, because of course there is no stuck. There's just part of me evolving and the physical part of me not going because I've got some pesky beliefs that are tugging against my new desire. Oh, I desire to know my clarity, but when I argue for my confusion, I drag my feet and don't let myself be clear, and then I say I'm stuck. And we say, just stop doing that thing you do. But you don't have to add the energy. When you get into your vehicle, are you ever tempted to just lift up the hood and get under there and be one of the belts or pistons or pulleys?
No.
You let the engine be the engine and you just guide it. And law of attraction is the engine. It's the energy. It's the leverage. It's the force. All you have to do is not offer a contradictory vibration, and that energy will take you. All of the tiredness and all of the energy and all of the struggle and all of the effort that you are expending, the reason that you even use the word energy in the way you offered it or effort in the way you offered it is because you've got contradictory vibration going on that's pulling against the bigger stream.
Okay, so that's what we need. That's my question then. What I'm confused about, I think that's a great word, is I see myself working on aligning with energy, and I think you're telling me that I'm not working on aligning with energy, I'm dragging my feet without knowing it.
Well, it's all right to work on aligning with energy. For a while, we called this gathering the science of deliberate creation, till we saw too many people working too hard on directing their thoughts. We saw you go, cancel, try to suck it back before the law of attraction got hold of it. Cancel, you would say. And then we began talking more about allowing. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Allowing, you've already set it into motion, now allow it. But you're right, there's a belief that many of you have picked up along your trail that it takes effort and hard work in order to get done what I want to get done. And we are trying to help you to bridge that belief by understanding that, of course, there are things you want to accomplish. And of course, life has caused you to already put them in your escrow. And of course, Source is answering them. So step 1 and step 2 are already in place. But your work now is not effort. Your work now is not hard work or struggle. Your work now is the opposite of that. Your work now is relaxing and allowing what's already brewing there to bring you in. And the feeling of struggle or stuckness in and of itself is that irritating indicator that you're not letting yourself go. We could give you a pronouncement, a very easy one, that would describe sort of generally and exactly what's going on with you much of the time. You're trying too hard. And the reason you're trying too hard, now think about why people try hard. Because they're not where they want to be. Well, you can't get to where you want to be when you're so vividly aware that you're not where you want to be. Because if I'm vividly aware that I'm not where I want to be, then not where I want to be is what's most active in my vibration. So Source is over here calling you toward where you want to be, but you're so busy not being where you want to be that you're pulling back against where you want to be because you're not where you want to be. And we say, you got to find some way of softening your irritation at not being where you want to be by appreciating a little bit that sometimes you got to be where you don't want to be in order to know where you want to be. Step 1 is part of this 3-step equation.
Right. So that's the piece then that I want to follow up on and look at ways in which I can work less, not be efforting, not be focusing so hard and striving so much, and not work. I guess that's the wrong word, and that's part of what I'm doing. So allowing.
What's really interesting about this conversation and the one before and the one before and the one before is that what's really interesting about this is that the reason that you want the things that you want that are in your vortex is because you believe when you get there, when you get them, when you achieve that, you will then feel better. And it is the very not feeling good that keeps you from doing it. Isn't it irritating? So you say, well, if I could get there, I'd feel better. And we say, yeah, but you got to feel better to get there. And you say, therein lies my confusion. I got to feel better to get to the place where I'll feel better. But if I don't feel better before I get to the place where I'll feel better, I can't get to the place where I'll feel better. And we say, exactly. And you say, well, if I could feel better, if I could stay where I am and feel better, then I wouldn't need to go to the place where I'll feel better. And we say, exactly. A woman said to us, Abraham, I don't think you care if my lover ever comes. I think you just want me to get so good at imagining him that I don't notice that he's not here. We said, exactly. Because when you feel good anyway, then everything that you want has to. So what's screwy in there is the belief that I have to work hard to get to where I want to be. What's screwy in there is I don't believe that I'm worthy without some sort of real perseverance and struggle. Therefore, I always set myself up for hard work, but I never really get there. And we say it's because it defies law. What's in the vortex matches ease and confidence and worthiness. These are the things that you want to foster within yourself. So we want you to line up with this vortex. We want you to get in the vortex. We want you to close the gap, not because you want to achieve what's in there, but because nothing else is natural to who you are. We wanted to say to our irritated friend earlier, and said it several times, your irritation is about misalignment, period. It's not about all those things it seems to be about. You're irritated because you're not in the vortex, period. And you're tired because you're not in the vortex, period. And you're confused because you're not in the vortex, period. And period. That's all there is. And you say, I get it. I'm supposed to be in the vortex. And I'm irritated that I'm not. And we say it's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Right.
So
sure
you got to make peace with not being in the vortex before you can be in the vortex. How about that?
Right. Well,
I have to make peace with where I am.
What I heard from this morning was the appreciating that you're not in the vortex starts you moving toward being in the vortex. So
what it really comes down to is through life, you have carved out not just a future life experience. You have carved out a vibrational identity for yourself. And that larger, non-physical, vibrational identity that was there before you even came into this body, but that you've added to every day since. This vibrational identity is so big and so joyful and so in the center of that vortex, in the center of that world that you've created, that it dominates everything that you are. So in every moment of your conscious awake experience in your physical body, you are experiencing what it feels like to have this relationship with this huge, vibrating being that is you, that has become. In other words, you have a vibrational beingness or personality. You have a vibrational becomingness that every moment you're being measured against. And what's happened with your measure, in other words, law of attraction, is causing that relationship to be acutely felt. Sometimes the acute feels like irritation. Sometimes it feels more. Sometimes you're so in sync that the relationship feels like bliss. Mm-hmm. When it feels like clarity, the relationship is melded. When it feels like irritation, there's some separation. When it feels like anger, there's more separation, more vibrational difference in who you are. So when we say to you, you can never not be aware of your vibrational relationship with who you've become, then you say, okay, yeah, but my awareness of it doesn't make it any easier for me to meld into it. And we say it will in time. When you consciously acknowledge that the way you feel is in your physical human thinking control, and you start deliberately thinking thoughts more like the thoughts that the source within you thinks, loving yourself more than criticizing yourself, loving others rather than criticizing them, looking for positive aspects rather than negative aspects, looking for abundance rather than lack. As you start training yourself into the vibrational frequency of who you really are, then that gap closes and you begin to feel that ease rather than that struggle. And what's happening to you now? You are in this faster moving, this energy of who you are is pulling you stronger and harder and faster than it ever has before. So the old beliefs of resistance now are sticking out like bigger sore thumbs, because your relationship, here's a good way of saying it, your source energy you, relationship with your physical human resistance is stronger now than it's ever been before. Because life has caused you to ask more, and now that resistance stands out more.
So the thing that I'm hearing you say is to drop this, let go of this concept of making it work, working at it, struggling with it, forcing my way into it.
Well, certainly let go of the struggle, but we don't want you to let go of your conscious, deliberate decision to be in charge of your life.
Right.
But these are the distinctions that we think would be beneficial for you. Rather than thinking, I've got to work harder, what you want to say is, I've already done the work, and the energy or the engine of this thing is law of attraction. I need to ease up and allow myself alignment with it.
Okay.
It's like here's the image that we would like to portray. First, we want you to accept that this vortex is the biggest game in town. That this is the dominant vibration of who you are. It includes who you were before you were born, and it includes every amended desire you've tossed into it since. And it includes source energy tending that extended, exaggerated, amended version of you. So this is where it's at. And then there's you. Where are you at? Are you close in? Are you far apart? Are you in the vortex? When you're in the vortex, you rendezvous with Jerry and Esther when they got on the elevator. They're going through the belly of the well, back through the inside of the hotel. And when they got onto the service elevator to go up to their room, the man who was already on the elevator, holding the door open for them, had a tray of food, and Esther said, "There's our lunch." And he looked at her like, "Now how could you possibly know that?" And Esther knew because she knew what she'd ordered and she recognized the configuration of it. And she said, "You're going to room such and such." And he said, "What an incredible coincidence this is."